Bird Group is one of the oldest travel technology companies, and 70% of the bookings that you make on any application happens through a backend platform called Amadeus. So Bird Group pioneers Amadeus, and they represent Amadeus in India, and now we're at Bird Group is at a stage where they want to give back to the travel and hospitality. They already do a lot of things, but sort of come out in the mainstream and do something. Yeah. So we all at Bird Group feel that technology as an enabler we can do a lot and impact a lot of lives at large. So these are a few products that we've built. Laundrette is an on-demand marketplace for laundries and dry cleaners. Odigos is an on-demand, it's basically an app where guides and local experience providers can come on board, register their packages, and sort of offer these packages to customers at large. So the idea with Odigos is, I'm going to stress a lot about Odigos and audio Odigos. So the idea with Odigos is that we wanted to enable the tour guide to come on board on a digital platform and put his or her packages and whatever they will be doing as an activity for the tourist, and have a confirmed booking beforehand. So what we see, and I'm sure all of us have witnessed it, is that whenever we go to a monument or anywhere to sightsee for sightseeing, there are a bunch of people, and there are a bunch of foreigners or tourists. One party is hounding and the other party is being hounded, right? So the idea with Odigos is to enable these guides or local experts to sort of market their services to an audience at large and have a confirmed booking beforehand. And they can also, it also works as a as a platform for them to manage all their business. So it's like a POS for them, right, where they can manage everything. So from a tour that they're not even doing with us, they can list their tour, write down their earnings, and then sort of have a dashboard into and directly pay taxes. So anything. So anything from listing, which is sort of selling their packages, managing their business. Everything can be done through an app. So you don't need to have we all know about, and Madhav pointed out at the very beginning that about the population and communication and how technology is changing, and so we've leapfrogged, and a lot of people don't have access to web, but they have access to mobile, right? So that's why a mobile app, which is very light and can be used. Yeah. So I've told you a little about Odigos. This is how it looks. You can, of course, we're working a lot. We all need a lot of design help because and open for all sort of collaboration. And so my first fear of coming here was that how do I make my presentation look good? So, but then I thought, let me keep it the way it is and sort of get opinions from you guys. So this is how the app looks. You can explore places, you can see the packages. They are categorized into different categories, which is a city tour or a food tour. We're working a lot on the UI UX now. This was just an MVP that we launched a few months back. For the guides, this is how it works. They can upload a photo and their contact details, put all the packages, accept a tour or reject a tour. So if they have a preoccupation, they can reject the tour. So it's essentially an Uber for guides, right? So again, the vision for Odigos is that we want to become a platform where all local guides, local experts, and small players can come on board, register their packages, and offer them a sort of platform to scale their services. This is another product that we've done. We've got we've signed an MOU with the government for this product. It's called Audio Odigos. Odigos means guides in Greek. So Audio Odigos, and so with Audio Odigos, where for the government we're we're taking these 12 iconic sites, and we've got a bunch of historians on board who are writing the content for us, and the content is being vetted by Ministry of Culture and so on and so forth, and we'll be building an audio guides app for all these 12 iconic sites. So the idea is to not only have these 12 iconic sites, but to have a repository of data from everywhere possible, and convert it into accessible information. So everything is accessible at a click of a button, right? And again, the vision for audio, our long-term strategy is to, of course, with Audio Odigos and Adopt a Heritage project that we're taking up with the government, our strategy is to promote heritage and culture. And Bird Group essentially feels a lot about, a lot for the travel, tourism, and all these aspects, because they've grown because of these industries, and they really want to give back in whatever way possible. And that's again coming back to my question, was that how do you really work with the government, because we are all impatient, right? We want results, and it takes time, and it is really time consuming, and as gatekeepers of this ideology for a corporation, how do we make sure that we take it forward? So those are some things that we're struggling with. So for Adopt a Heritage, these are the three monuments that we've put a vision bid for. We're in the process of negotiating with the government, and recently Dalmia Cement had taken up Red Fort, and there was a lot of bad publicity that happened around it, which has sort of put Ministry of Culture and Ministry of Tourism in a cocoon, and they are not acting up on these projects, because the idea was to take up spaces around the monument, but there has been a lot of hue and cry around that, which is right and wrong both, which is debatable, of course. So we put a vision bid for Gol Gumbad. I'm sure everyone knows where Gol Gumbad is, Badalao, and Mehrauli Archaeological Park. I've lived in that area for about 10 years. I didn't know Mehrauli Archaeological Park existed. And for those of you who don't, it's a wonderful park. It has so many monuments inside it, but it's a disputed property. There are so many stakeholders around it. There are different boards, different bodies that have disputed the place. There is immense amount of encroachment. But if that were to be, and this is one of the projects that I really deeply feel for, that I would love to have this project on board and sort of recreate the space around it, because it is in Mehrauli, which is accessible from Gurgaon, Delhi, everywhere, and there are so many other, there's a huge residential population that lives around it. I know a lot of friends who travel from Chhatarpur to Lodi Garden, and they very easily, everyone skips this place that exists. I'm sure if a huge amount of work is done around this place, then it would be better than, if not as good, better than what Lodi Garden is, right? So it's a very nice space there, and yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, open to you guys. And another thing that we want to do with these monuments, and sort of to recreate the spaces around them, is we want to have a lot of people. Now Radi is not here, but a lot of people who in the arts and culture fraternity to come out and use those spaces, because a monument is nothing without soul, right? So there is a huge, of course there is a soul in the monument, but if people like us who are doing such great work don't come out and use those spaces, After 5 years, if we don't exist, in the sense that Bird Group is not taking care of the project, again the place will go to shambles, right? So there is no point of any corporation spending as much amount of money without us having been an important stakeholder of that project. So yeah.
I wanted to find out, because I may not have understood it right. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is new technology, all the app-based stuff, and it's all, in the what you want to call virtual world and IT related. This participation as far as the monuments, adopting them or taking them, whatever you want to do. What exactly would that involve in concrete terms? What should you do as in terms of expertise, and what are your ideas there?
So see, like Adopt a Heritage is a project by the Ministry of Tourism, where they are inviting corporations to take up the monuments and spaces around them.
Sorry. No, I'm aware of that. I'm
Yeah.
aware of the fact of the controversy around it. Also, the fact that we've, unfortunately for us, most media, in the case of this Dalmia example you gave, we've had a long history of, in case of Delhi, for example, we've been, whether it's Pauls and Jantar Mantar, they've done wonderful things, and this has been there, so without getting into that controversy, whatever it is. I'm saying that your organization and your participation would be, and how would it tie up with this, which is a different.
So Bird Group is predominantly a technology and hospitality venture and education, right? So what we want to do is that if we take up, say for example, if we take up Mehrauli Archaeological Park, the first thing is, with the funds that we can put into a monument, is to recreate the space in the sense that make pathways, make it accessible to differently able people, right? Have golf carts, have other things which are doable, right? In the short term, right? To make the space more accessible, because right now if you go to any of these spaces, thankfully in the last 1 year, the space around Bada Lao has been built, the Vasant Vihar DDA Park. It's been rebuilt really well. If DDA does all that, then we don't need to do anything. If DDA does that for every park, we don't need to do anything, right? But short term is that with technology around that monument, what we want to do is that we want to create. We'll be installing, like, say LCD screens and creating say a documentary or something to showcase the history of that space. We'll be trying to get information driven through the apps that we're building, right? Through an audio guide app or through Odigos that we're doing. And with hospitality, we can, with our hospitality venture, we can have a food truck there or something, so that people who are around that space have access to basic things like water, etc. So we are trying to be as flexible with the government as possible, because sadly the way they perceive any corporation who wants to give a sustainable project is that you are in it for making money, right? But the fact of the matter is, if the project is not sustainable, I cannot keep putting funds, right? And if I am doing it or the government is doing it, they will have to go to any corporation after every 5 years and seek funds. And as many times as these will change hands, there's going to be problem, right? So the idea is to build a sustainable project and have least amount of participation in terms of dismantling the space. I don't want to dismantle the space. I want to make sure that the space is, I can bring back life to that space, right? So if there is a need, if the space doesn't need a food cart, if it just needs a simple water, I can get access to water, I can install an RO and I can give people water and the basic necessities, we are happy to do that. So that's the whole idea behind that. Yeah.
I'm sure when you taken this on from the mandate that the Ministry of Tourism has, there would be some kind of baseline commitments you're expected to make, either in terms of quantum of money or in terms of activities that they kind of mandate you to do. My question is actually, it's interesting that you're talking about adopt the heritage, but you're the apps guy. And I think that's very interesting, and that's possibly one of the things that maybe you can think about, because that's the sort of lateral thinking that I don't think the government is capable of doing. And it's this idea that if your apps are portals of information, and if information is what creates stories, and if stories are what create memories, then, and if memory is what eventually becomes a monument, right? So if the non-physical aspect of that narrative creation, narrative evolution, narrative dissemination is something that you can capture by and large in the virtual space, then like you're saying, if you want a minimal intervention in the physical, then you need to kind of create the possibilities of memory making in that virtual space, so that you're not inflicting it on the physical space, which is where the controversies start, right?
Yeah.
So that's one way to think about it. And
Definitely.
that's also one way of securing a sustainability financially, which has got nothing to do with what you're actually putting up physically on site. I find it really interesting because, like, immediately the thing that comes to my mind is that these monuments have always been lovers' paradises. And these lovers like to immortalize themselves on the monument. Today we know that, like, platforms like Facebook and social media have this thing called the wall, which we are now told will never get erased. That once you write something on the internet, your great-grandchildren will hear about it. So I'm thinking maybe that's a really interesting way of looking at what you can do with a smartphone. And like maybe, like, you know, there was that game, right, that people used to run into walls playing, where they were chasing little Japanese, sorry? Pokemon, right? So if a monument is like infested with little Pokemon objects that you have to pick No, see, you have to understand that this is how designers think their ideas through. But I'm just thinking that if there was ways for me to embed information in a kind of VR enabled view of the monument, which I could access, and that could be subverting mainstream narratives as well. So all this kind of, you know, because every monument has multiple stories in it, and not everyone knows it. Part of the reason why you need good guides is that you need those engaging stories, and it's not going to come from you. You are not historians, and even the largest collection of historians will not give you the varieties of stories that are associated with monuments.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the kind of thing you guys need to
So
tackle.
as I told you when we were chatting there, that this is step one, right? We're already thinking in AR VR direction, right? There are a few apps out there who are doing some great stuff. We're collaborating with them. So I think one thing that Anthony and I connected with on when we spoke the other day was collaboration. He said, you know, we're doing that in a big way. So we have the capability to build it ourselves, but we understand that if somebody is doing it with passion, we would like to collaborate, right?
No, but consider what it means that you get the people who visit these monuments to fill it with their stories.
Exactly.
Content creation, you rely on kind of.
Yeah. So so that's what I'm saying, that we're open to doing it. We're open to doing a lot of things. This is just step one. We need to get with the government somewhere so that we can make a larger impact, right? And AR VR is already on our list. We've explored it's a very beautiful product that we've explored very recently, that I can project Qutub Minar on this table right here and step by step get a history of Qutub Minar, because as all of you are aware, it was built in phases, right? So every phase is a story, and that's also part of the audio guide, right? So we need to get there. People need to be comfortable with the idea of consuming content through technology. So I think what we're sort of doing is that we're collaborating with people who are creating this content, and we are sort of pushing this content to the consumers. So because we understand that, and we are going to be doing that for a very long time.
What Madhu mentioned, one good way off would be that with virtual walls, maybe the actual walls of monuments will be saved by these lovers who are always.
That's exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I completely take this point.
There
Like,
are way too many lovers destroying.
yeah, definitely.
And have a heart
Or
for the
aspiring
lovers.
lovers, whatever.
You know, when you're in
love, you want to really tell the universe about it. Why not do it on the internet with the largest audience possible? Including your parents. Well, as long as you're not friends with them online, it's fine.
Bruce, one thing, there is some magic to the tangible fact of scraping a wall.
Yeah.
Do it on your cell phone screen with a piece of glaze.
Any other question?
While you're there.
Yeah.
So it's not a question.
Sorry.
It was something that we are also working in that similar direction. What we are trying to do is basically we try to scan the entire monument and the area surrounding it, and then we sort of optimize that data, which can be then utilized in various formats.
Sure.
But the best part of it
So it's like a GIS for the monument.
yeah.
It's like a GIS for the monument. You scan as in you physically scan.
Yeah, so it's also as a for the it's scan multiple, so it's laser scan also, it's photogrammetry also, it's architectural.
It is a GIS for monuments, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, more or less, yes. But it is time taking, it's very tedious.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
painful and people don't understand how much effort it takes to just do one monument.
I can feel your pain because I've been
Yeah.
for Mehroli Archaeological Park when we did the initial vision bid. Our director's wife is a architect, so her and the team, all of us were there like 6 in the morning to, I don't know how many days we visited these monuments to just create a small vision bid. So to do a proper study, I don't even know how much time you're spending.
So we have spent about 1.5 years doing just 3 monuments and one of them in full detail. But yeah.
Sure.
The last question.
Okay, so why?
So what also sits in Mehroli, all those boutiques, all the Olive, all of our trendy restaurants sit in there. It's right within, distance of all these monuments and even the archaeological park. How did they get in? And how did they attract that group of people? And what is your learning from their experience of restoring those spaces and making them spaces that all of us elites love to go to on a Friday night? And what could you take from that? And also, what did they do wrong that you don't want to repeat?
So very nicely pointed out about where a lot of these places in Mehroli are, right? Again, these places are appreciated by a certain set of population that lives in Delhi, right? If you ask the rural urban, which is the rural urban as you were pointing out, that what they think of these places, they don't think much about these places. And that is the population that we are having to deal with in a place like Mehroli Archaeological Park.
Create mistrust.
Exactly. So I think that's the problem there. So it's we're trying to get as many stakeholders as possible on board. So if there is a part of the and again, arm twisting is something that really works, and you get people on board, you explain them you try and get one of the leaders on board, right? So if there's a population around Mehroli which is against this, then you try and get the leader on board and understand from the leader what is the problem. Try and address as much as you can. So that's what I was trying to, that's why my first question to Madhav was, how can you make sure what you imagine is what you implement? Because in the process of getting everyone on board, you dilute so much of your vision that what you really implement, sometimes you feel sad about. Because what you really imagined versus what you really implemented is nowhere close to what you would want to implement also. But that's the sad story of implementation here.